these methods I'm about to share with you are not only just backed by science, but backed by a lot of personal experience. I use these to bag 3 A stars in my A levels, and also over the last 5 years, I've done this with over 50,000 students on my online platform for GCSE English. So I've dealt with every kind of student you could imagine. I've dealt with the last minute crammers who leave literally everything to the minute before the exam, to the silent warrior, the person who's always worried if they're doing enough or they'll do well, the grade grabbers as I like to call them, the people who are like 7s and 8s but aspiring for those full marks to get those grade 9s across the board. And also I've worked with the daydreamers, people who like want to do well but just kind of get lost, they lose momentum, they get quite bored and they procrastinate. So if you are any of those students, this will work for you. So I'm gonna break it down into 3 parts. I'm gonna go through writing notes, I'm gonna go through revision, and I'm gonna go through application, because they're the 3 things you're gonna need to do to get those top grades. So number 1 is writing notes. Just grab an A3 piece of paper, so one of those big pieces of paper. For each topic, you're only allowed to have 1 piece of paper. Now, depending on the size of the topic, you can use both sides of the topic if it's a massive topic. Let's say, for example, you're studying Macbeth in GCSE English, like that's a big topic. So you can use both sides of the A3, but you're allowed no more for 1 topic. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna write down all of your highest level notes on there. When I say highest levels, it's got to be concise. You don't need to use full words. You can use abbreviations as long as you can understand it. So write it down, but it must be condensed. So you can get these notes from like the internet, your textbooks, whatever you trust. For example, on the Lighter Pub, I've literally designed it so students can just log in and they can get everything they want. Like they don't have to think about anything else. It's proven, it's on there. So say, for example, you're on any lesson, you can just hit the summary button and you can just take the summaries notes directly from there, add a bunch of sheets. And in that way, when you've got these condensed notes, you're not wasting hours and hours, because that's what so many students do. They waste so much time going through everything, writing these lovely notes, that they don't go through the 2nd and 3rd step, which are also just as important. So for example, something like biology, you might look like at photosynthesis or enzymes, and they could just be like half or a quarter of it. We just wanna make sure they're kind of all in one place. Now, the second thing we wanna do is actually revision. Now, writing up notes is not revision. I will repeat, writing up notes is not revision. That is not doing something we call active recall. So we are actually going and retaining the knowledge. So there are 3 different ways that you can revise to make sure you're actually absorbing the information. Number 1 is active recall, number 2 is spaced repetition, and number 3 is interleaving. So for active recall, there are 4 different ways that you can do it. The first one is flashcards, having a question on the front, answer on the back, and then you're just testing yourself on the question and the answer. And you can make these flashcards, of course, from your condensed A3 sheets, because they're like your single source of truth. They are the one thing that you're going to use. You're not going to need to use anything else. We've got blurting, where it's like you'll read through your A3 sheet or whatever the topic is, and then you'll set a timer and you'll write down as much as you can remember. And then you'll go back with a different color pen, let's say for example like a red pen, and you'll fill in all the bits that you missed. Then we've got things like quizzes or practice questions, so trying to see how that question comes up in different formats, so it's not asked in the same way each time, so you can see how to apply it even if the question is different. And then we've got fill in the blanks, which is removing like a key piece of information, like a grade 9 keyword or a date or a formula, and then filling it in. So let's just say I've made notes on Macbeth. So instead of just rewriting my notes or highlight my notes, I'm gonna test myself. I'm gonna go through, read through my notes, read through my summaries. I'm gonna quiz myself on different quiz questions. I'm gonna also do fill in the blanks. I'm also gonna go back through it again afterwards and fill in like summary questions to make sure I really understand it, because then I'm showing I'm applying my knowledge, I'm not just learning it. Now, the next revision technique is spaced repetition. Now, you can pair this with active recall, so I would definitely recommend doing like active recall and pairing it with spaced repetition. And this is just when you just don't do something once, you come back to it again and again. Now, this seems really overwhelming because you're thinking, right, Aaliyah, I've got 1,000 different subjects. I've got loads of different topics with my subjects. Like, how am I meant to go back to things? But if you create a little system around this, I promise you, if you start this now, this will be a godsend for you. So say, for example, I was revising like World War II. What I would do is I revise it, then I set a reminder to revise it again the next week. Now, when I say revise it, it's just like going over, either doing blurting, any of my active recall, like anything you want. I'm gonna revise it again the next week. And I'm also gonna set a reminder, a timer or something to remember it at some point in the month. So one topic, you should touch base with it at least 3 times in 1 month, but it's only gotta be like 15, 20 minutes. Like, it doesn't have to be long at all, or like 10 minutes, depending on how long the topic is. You can set it out on your calendar, but just set a reminder for the next week and then also the same month. and that will really help with spaced repetition. And then the last one is interleaving. Now this works for some students, it doesn't work for everyone, but I want to give you all the tools, all the things you can decide and actually try what works for you. Now this is mixing up different topics in the same study session. Now you can be wild with this and do different subjects as a whole, but I recommend doing different topics within the same subject. So let's say, for example, in English, you might in one study session go through Macbeth, go through language paper 1 and unseen poetry. So you're mixing up different topics within a subject, and this really helps you kind of go back and forth and really helping with that active memory. And like by constantly switching, your brain's constantly have to think, okay, like, what method should I use? And it just really helps with that like active revision, not just highlighting and writing down notes. And then the third one is practice. Now, this one again seems obvious, but I've got a few top tips that are gonna be really helpful. We've got kind of 2 ways to practice. It's just doing full past paper questions. Now you don't need me to explain that one. You just go onto whatever the exam board is, or you can find on different resources, on different websites that have created their own like simulation of a past paper question. As long as it looks in the format, you can literally have a go at setting a timer and going through it. But that does take a lot of time. And I'm very realistic. You've got a lot of subjects, you've got a lot of things to learn. Like, do you have time to sit there and do a past paper question for literally every single thing? Not really. And this is where plans or mini assessments come in. So when I say mini assessments, what I mean is we don't want to write up full responses because that takes absolutely forever. We want to bullet point it. And this works really well for like essay-based subjects, or let's say like science, like 6-mark questions, where you can literally just bullet point out what you would do. So let's say, for example, we were writing an essay on an inspector calls. I would just bullet point down, okay, what is the quote I'm going to use? What is the analysis I'm going to use? Very briefly. How would I link it to that question? What context would I use? And I basically just go through and bullet point the different things I would do, which is allowing me just to see, okay, like, how would I apply this information in different formats in the exam? Because with every subject, more or less, you're learning a select amount of information and you're just learning how you apply it in different ways it comes up. And I promise you, this is like seals the deal, because the revision is helping you actually know the content. And when you're doing this application, it should be completely from memory. And then you're just looking at, okay, how am I applying this select information I've been putting on my A3 sheet, that I've obviously memorized through my different revision techniques, and how am I just applying it to different formats of when it comes up? Because if you know the topic inside out, they can't ask you anything outside of that topic. It's just about how well you link it. So being able to apply with these mini assessments and not doing these full write-ups allows you to see how you can apply that small amount of information and just apply it to everything. And guys, that is how you're gonna bag grade 9 after grade 9 by using that 3-part structure. And if you guys did like this and wanted any more of these videos, please do subscribe. Comment as well, like if you want any more videos like this, more revision tip videos, I'm more than happy to do them. And I'm also gonna link a little video here to help you with your revision.